Hello everybody and welcome to another MerlinCast. It's I, Merlin, your host, and we're going to be doing a random late night podcast. And I just want to kind of start off by saying, there is one minor criticism that I do have to YouTube because, of course, there could only be one. But in all honesty, though, I'm to keep myself kind of occupied and awake because I want to, drive myself to provide some interesting content, hopefully, for you guys. I'm actually having videos in the background just kind of to look at, and I decided, what I'm going to do therapeutically. I'm going to look through my favorites, my YouTube favorites playlist, and kind of look through it. And I actually thought about maybe even doing a video about that sometime, just because it would be kind of interesting to see, if you guys don't know what some of my favorite videos are, because I don't really favorite that many. And my first favorite video is actually this honestly pretty good AMV about Vegeta, his dream life and ascension, which it's an old video. It's from like 2008, but it kind of goes through the different pieces of the Bardock special all the way through Z, and just kind of showing Vegeta's growth. And it's got like this really epic music. I mean, I guess from a technical standpoint, it's not really like the best, but it intersplices dialogue with music, and it's decent. It gets you pumped up. It's pretty standard, but back in the day when I was starting to get more into YouTube, I thought it was pretty cool. But that was my first one. It's not bad, so I might talk about that as I go through here. I'm sure I won't get through them all, but anyway, I kind of just wanted to talk about some things on my mind because I hadn't done one of these in a while, and I kind of want to get this channel back on track, I guess. But we'll talk a little bit more about that probably towards the end of the video. If you guys are interested, I'll probably do some hyperlinks. But in the meantime, let's talk about some news stuff because, we got to do that. First thing I want to talk about briefly, but I'm also going to use to promote something else. In Dragon Ball Super, I'm a little behind. You'll notice there's a theme going on in this in this podcast. But Freiza apparently is going to be returning yet again to Dragon Ball. And, I have mixed feelings about it, but I've decided I'm going to give you guys more concise thoughts in an article, because what I've been doing lately over the past couple weeks, I haven't been doing as many videos, but I've been just doing articles instead on my website, on my blog at merlinthemighty.com, and I like to write, so I kind of feel like I'm just giving you guys typically the scripts for my videos just in written form, so if you guys want to read it. Usually they aren't very long, but they're pretty concise, and I'm actually pretty proud of them. Writing's one of the things I'm pretty decent at. So I'm actually going to be discussing Freiza a little bit more, probably in article form within the next day or two. Who knows, maybe I'll be able to upload it tomorrow. But yeah, that's something that's been on my mind. Also, as far as other stuff I've been watching, in terms of anime, actually, the only thing I've really been keeping up on recently, and I'm a little behind on that too, is Attack on Titan. I feel kind of bad because I was hating on Attack on Titan for years because I was really into the show in the beginning. Like everybody else, I was into the hype. And then I found out something about the manga, and I just said that was stupid and kind of writ it off. And admittedly, I wasn't really happy with certain other aspects of the show, and I actually wrote an article about that too. If you guys want to check it out, maybe I'll put a link in the description as well. But basically, I didn't like the direction it was going, and I didn't really care about pursuing anything in the manga and finding out what happened, so I just kind of forgot about it. But it came back, and I checked it out, and I watched the first couple episodes, and I have to say, I wish I had not completely written it off, because it wasn't quite as dumb as it sounded, the whole, the walls are made of Titans thing. The way they present it, it's actually kind of interesting, and I actually kind of like it. And the last episode I saw was kind of this really personal one. And man, just once again, it's a really tragic, kind of sad series of people getting eaten alive, but also that heroism of the human spirit that is really endearing, which I think is one of the aspects of the show that people really like. But yeah, I've actually been enjoying Attack on Titan thus far. Also, on a semi-related note, I've been watching Samurai Jack quite a bit. I've been keeping up with that probably more than any other show, which I know isn't that impressive because it's like 20 minutes long, but I watch it when I have a little bit of time, and man, another thing I wrote about recently, but Samurai Jack has been really good. Just really, I really am amazed by how they've managed to capture the atmosphere of the original show to the point where it makes it feel like there never was a gap and it just picked up literally right where it left off, like it could be 2005, except it's a little bit darker, a little bit, more adult perhaps, but the thing is, Samurai Jack was always kind of pushing those boundaries anyway, so it's not really that surprising, but it's pretty awesome. But yeah, Samurai Jack's been really good. I know it's probably going to be ending finally, but if they decided to make more, that'd be awesome too. As far as movie reviews, I've kind of cut back on a lot of the movies I've been going out to see just because of time and money and other things. But I did see Guardians of the Galaxy, and I want to expand a little bit here because I did put up a video, but the footage got kind of messed up. It got all grainy and de-digitized or whatever, so it's kind of messy. But basically, my friends and I really liked the movie, and I thought that this is... I really think it's probably one of the best Marvel movies thus far. And as you guys know, the first Guardians of the Galaxy I really, really liked. This one was more dramatic, but it was still really good. I liked the villain. I liked the fact that all the characters got a lot of time to flesh out their backstories and their interactions. A very heavily character-driven story, but still excellently put together. Visually, it was stunning. If you're going to use CGI, use it well, and the time and effort that the studio put into it is really great. Group was awesome. All the actors were really committed to their roles. The story was a little uneven, I think, in terms of who the villains were going to be and what direction it was going, but the main story was still good enough that I mostly overlooked it. I reviewed it with my friend Dan recently, and we kind of both realized the soundtrack wasn't anywhere near as good as the first one, which I didn't really think about, but then I realized, wow, there aren't really any songs I can automatically say I knew, maybe one or two, but yeah, the soundtrack's definitely inferior, but, in most cases I'd say, is that a major thing? Maybe not, but then again, it's kind of a major component of Guardians of the Galaxy, so take it or leave it. But on the whole, I mean, if I had to rank them, I don't know if I'll do it now, but if I could, I'd say it's definitely up there for me. It's right up there with the first Guardians. There are some things I like about it more than the original. I think that the character stuff and even some elements of the story are stronger, but I think it's a little bit less focused because the jokes weren't as good. So it's kind of evens out, but it's really, really close for sure. But yeah, I mean, you can watch that video if you want to, but that's basically what we liked about it. I also want to briefly talk about It, because I was told there was another trailer that was released for the Stephen King's It film, and that novel scared me so much when I was younger that I'm really kind of happy that they're probably going to make a movie that might do the horror of the novel justice, but at the same time I'm kind of scared if they do it too well. Because that book is one of the few that genuinely terrified me. I was probably too young to read it, but it was very scary. Probably some of Stephen King's best stuff for sure. Just moving on to some kind of general discussions about things I realized I hadn't really talked much about. I realized I haven't really discussed Marvel's Netflix shows at any length on this channel, and I gotta say, Iron Fist... Iron Fist was kind of bad. Like, I know it's got its fans, and it's one of those things where the divide, I remember in Rotten Tomatoes, was just like ridiculous because the critics hated it and the fans loved it. I think what it is, I almost kind of wonder, it's kind of like Star Wars or the Marvel Cinematic Universe films in general, how I think fan power just is really, well, I think just fandom has really kind of overpowered the critics to some degree. Like, if there's just such a good reputation of a certain product, the critics almost can't touch it, because people were hating on Iron Fist right out of the gate, but people still watched it. And most of the people that I spoke to that watched it either said it was okay or they really liked it. I know a couple people that said they didn't, so it's definitely the most mixed of the Marvel, Netflix shows. But as far as I saw, I tried to rewatch it again. I showed it to some people. It's pretty bad. It's just the people don't act like people, and the characters make really weird decisions that defy logic, and especially in this more grounded, realistic version of the universe. It just doesn't work. But that aside, though, I think that all the other shows are really good. I was thinking, I watched Jessica Jones a little bit. That's a good show. I personally think it's probably... I think the other three are all pretty closely tied, but that one might be the weakest. I hate to, I hate to sound like, I feel like I'm just kind of siding with my favorite, but Luke Cage was really, really good. Luke Cage was really, really awesome. It just feels, like Harlem. It just feels really awesome. I think Luke Cage is a fantastic character. I really like the story there too, but I think the villains were kind of unfocused. I know people have discussed that at length, but that's kind of how I felt about that. Really, Daredevil's still my favorite, but yes, Daredevil's like one of my favorite, comic book heroes. I really like the Kingpin a lot in that one. I really like the story. I like the mystery of it, and I like the crime-fighting superhero aspect of it, but I also enjoyed the legal stuff. I thought that show felt like they had the most balance. I think probably because the character's the most fleshed out and well-known. By the way, we're on the second video. It's the top 20 Vegeta quotes. They're all really bad Funimation dub ones, but but yeah, Daredevil still pretty highly up there for me. Let's see. Oh, I have not really discussed Rick and Morty at all, but that recent episode that came out I thought was really awesome. The hype for Rick and Morty has just been, I think, one of the highest of anything. We live in an age where all these shows are just so hyped. Everything is hyped, which I guess is funny because they're building things off of pre-existing stories and products, franchises, so there is potential for an audience to get excited about just about anything these days. But with Rick and Morty, it's a fairly recent thing, a fairly recent fandom, and I kind of like those stories of just these random cartoons that get picked up and they become something awesome. And Rick and Morty, I feel like, unfortunately, it's another one of those examples of so much has probably been said about it. I think the guys over, what's the site actually? Man, I wish I could remember it, but not Cracked, but I like them a lot. The guys that talk about the philosophy of such and such shows, you can tell it's late because I don't remember, but they talk about it quite well. But the Rick and Morty characters, I think, really do fit into the way I think a lot of people in my generation kind of view things, kind of with this like sarcastic, almost nihilistic view. But at the same time, there's a lot of people that are just really open-minded to possibilities and kind of willing to go with the flow. So there's kind of a lot of positivity and negativity that's just really colliding in Rick and Morty and what it represents about our culture. But then again, maybe that's just how life is anyway, so maybe it is a perfect representation. But I just love how everything is just kind of a throwback to really, really awesome sci-fi and horror movies, but at the same time it is really good science fiction. It's a really well-written story with all these twists and turns, and despite all the raunchy humor and all the fart jokes and all the really mean-spirited stuff, there's actually really a lot of heart to it and a point to it all. And the characters are really interesting and somehow believable despite their cartooniness. It's one of those instances where it's just difficult to pull that off, and I think that there's a certain simplicity on the surface that I think most people can kind of gravitate to. But if you look further into it, Rick and Morty just has a lot to offer, and I think that's why it's so rewatchable. And I'm really excited for more of it. I was watching more of the second season the other day, and oh man, I want to watch it again. Like, Rick and Morty is just so good. It's so awesome, and if you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. But moving on to something older, I don't know why I wrote this down. I have a list here of things I wanted to go through, but for some reason, Power Rangers has been on my mind. Maybe it was that recent movie. I don't even know what I want to talk about here. I'm just like, Power Rangers is kind of one of those things that I just grew up with, and it definitely had its place in my life, and it kind of rears its head, but I've never fully been able to dive back into it for many reasons. But, I remember, I'm just thinking, for those of you guys that don't know, I guess my experience was, pretty limited. Okay, first of all, when I was a kid, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers was awesome. I loved it when I was a kid. Lord Zed was my favorite villain. My favorite Ranger of the original Rangers, I want to say, I think if people knew me, they'd say I'd probably be a Tommy guy. Okay, wrong. Like everybody else. Or, I'd like Billy, because he's the nerdy guy. But no, I think if I had to think about my favorite original Mighty Morphin Power Ranger, I think it's the Red Ranger. I think I like the original leader character. And I don't know. I guess I gravitate to some of those guys. I don't usually go for the main character, but no, I like the original Red Ranger. I really do. But yeah, Mighty Morphin was good. I remember that I watched some of Zeo, but I don't think I liked it as much because a lot of the characters left and it was different villains. I didn't like Mondo and the Machine Empire that much. I didn't like the new outfits that much. I know people like the Zeo Crystal, but I don't know. Zeo I kind of went in and out of. Turbo I somehow missed almost entirely. I watched a couple episodes, like I knew of its existence, but Turbo's like one of the worst, and I somehow missed it. But then I got to In Space, and In Space just was the culmination, really, of everything up to that point, with all the villains joining together, and it was Power Rangers in space, right? You know, fighting the aliens, and with big sci-fi stakes, and this big overarching plot, which, for Power Rangers I think was fairly complex at the time. But that was like the be-all, end-all, which was probably the best for me. But I really liked Lost Galaxy a lot too, which came out afterwards. And I remember, I think, a little bit of, what would have been, Lightspeed Rescue and Time Force. I remember watching a little bit of those, but I kind of got out of it after a while. But yeah, Power Rangers is something that I always kind of enjoyed and think fondly of, and I wouldn't mind checking it out again, but I don't know. I've just been thinking a little bit about Power Rangers and how there was a fondness for that simplicity in my life when I liked that, and I don't know. I kind of want to get deeper into it somehow again, but that's just another bulk of something that would take a lot of time. Switching gears over to video games very briefly, because I don't play too many, just mostly because of time, but I've always been kind of an amateur gamer for the most part. But I did want to say that apparently there's been overwhelming positive reception to Call of Duty going back, oh my goodness, can you guys believe this, to World War II. Wow! How many years did it take him to do that again? And the reason I bring that up is because, in my heyday, which was mostly action-adventure games and first-person shooters, one of my favorite games, like before when I was still getting really into video games, I really did enjoy Call of Duty, but World at War was, and probably is, one of my favorite shooters, and it just was really awesome. You got the combination of both fronts, and I always liked the setting for World War II. I kind of wish they would get beyond World War II. Like, I know recently, I think it was a Battlefield that had the World War I game, which was actually unique. I've been talking about that for years with some of my friends, that there needs to be more World War I media in general, but especially for video games, because it's just fascinating. But I think that they must have realized that there is an interest in history and those settings, because, how many games can you have in the same modern setting? Because that was one of the big criticisms that, it's been talked about with Call of Duty so much over the last couple of years, 5 years or so, that it's almost become kind of a joke. Like, everybody knows it, and that entire series isn't really taken seriously. The Black Ops and, all that other stuff, just modern warfare. Like, I remember... I remember most of the Call of Duty series, really. The original couple ones that were based in World War II were actually pretty good. They were all pretty good. They built upon each other. They kind of culminated with World at War. And then you had Modern Warfare, which was really awesome. And the second and third one I think were okay. I personally didn't like them as much as the first one. I didn't really play any Black Ops, but I just knew that by that. I think around the time they came out with Modern Warfare 2 or 3, and then by the second Black Ops, it was like it's all the same maps. They don't really change anything. The stories suck. It's just they keep recycling things, basic shooters. And I guess how much can you really be innovative with the shooter after a certain point? But I got tired of them personally, and I would rather play a more sci-fi based one like Half-Life or BioShock or almost anything else, to be honest. If I'm gonna do a more realistic shooter, unless there's kind of a contextualized detective story or something based around it, if it's going to be a war, I kind of would want it to take place in a different setting. That if it's historical, all the better. That would be cool. I'll confess, I don't usually play shooters for the story, but if it has a good story, that's great. It's just that for Call of Duty, it's really fallen by the wayside, and I'm glad that they're finally listening after all this time and getting back to their roots. And we're finally going to get a break from all the modern futuristic tech that we've been kind of dealing with for a while. And I'm just glad for that. As an amateur gamer that probably won't even play it anytime soon, I am glad it's happening. It was recently Free Comic Book Day, so I went to this store you guys might be familiar with, Second and Charles. It's just a place that has all kinds of like old collectibles, old used books and comics and instruments and video games. It's kind of awesome if you're a geek or you're into like any fandom or collectible. It's awesome. It's sort of the Walmart of comic book stores and collector stores or whatever. But it's cool though. It's a cool concept, cool place. And I just got a bunch of comics. I got a nice deal. I think it was like buy 5 used comics, get 5 free. So typically, I just kind of go through them. Nothing really, amazing was found or anything. I just kind of flipped through a couple different ones, and I picked one from different heroes if I liked the cover, and that was pretty much it. And I just came to a determination that, if you guys didn't know, 90s comics were kind of bad. And, being, born at the tail end of the 80s, date myself a little bit here. Growing up in the 90s as a kid, that was my initial introduction to comics. And looking back on history, the 90s kind of almost destroyed comic books because, of the whole, the constant, like, splitting of all the different series and then trying to create thousands of collector editions with the holographic covers, which, blew up the industry. But then, if everybody had one, it kind of devalued all the comics, and then people stopped. People bought too many of them, and they wouldn't buy enough of them, and it almost bankrupted Marvel. And then all the really bad artwork and the over dramatic, over violence, sexualized 90s hardcore guns exploding. Like, it's just 90s comics were just the whole extreme thing. If you guys ever watched Linkara, he really or F. Debris, they really do a good examination of the time. And 90s comics. I'm not going to say there weren't good 90s comics, but for the most part, the 90s was kind of a dark time for comics because it kind of almost ended it. And if it wasn't for the fact that the movies, particularly the Marvel movies, started being successful, with Spider-Man and the X-Men films, and the success of those, that's really what saved Marvel, selling those movie rights. It's and then getting more interest into the comics after that, so. It's interesting how that kind of turned around. But the 90s were my introduction to comic books. Yes, I did, watch a lot of the cartoons growing up, which, on the counter side to that, really introduced more people to comics and helped popularize them and realize that they weren't just for kids, Batman, Spider-Man, X-Men, etc. But in terms of the actual comics in the 90s, my first comic book, and most of the comics that I read in the 90s were Spider-Man comics. And Spider-Man comics in the 90s were dark, they were disturbing, they were weird, they were confusing, often not very well written, it seems. And, well, let's put it this way. The Clone Saga. I picked up Spider-Man comics right, like, smack dab in the middle, practically, of the Clone Saga, or right when it was ending. So, obviously, I didn't know much about that. I was able to kind of pick up some things, like there's another Spider-Man or something, but for me it was like, what is this? I remember always being interested in those comics, and I remember that I was able to read them, and I understood the words, but I didn't really fully understand the bigger plot, because, if I was at the grocery store, I'd ask my mom to get me a comic, and they were kind of pricey, so, maybe every couple months I'd pick up a random comic, which, might be like issue 3 of a 5-part story, and you're like, Spider-Man's being strangled by some weird purple guy, and he's, with a bunch of random people, that seemed, I guess, might have been Mary Jane or somebody trying to escape from some ninjas or some weird lab, and like, what's happening? It's like, it was very bizarre, out of context for like a 7-8-year-old kid. But I remember my first comic that I think I ever got, one of them was this one where Carnage was introduced. He wasn't actually introduced in that comic. It was a little later, obviously, but he was escaping from this prison, this like insane asylum, and he was this horrifying image of him just kind of, moving down the drain, this liquid form as the symbiote escapes. And I brought it in for show and tell, and the ladies at the daycare looked at it like, no, you can't, because like I said, they, even though kids could buy them and they're marketed towards children, comics really aren't for kids, not even superhero comics, especially in the 90s, man. I mean, I guess a lot of comics are still more mature or dark now, or over the past 10 years or so, but in the 90s, they weren't subtle about it. Like, from the cover, you could tell there was, like, horrible violence, and there was, like, God, it was rough, man. But Carnage was scary, man. Carnage was scary, and he still is. He's not a fun guy to be around. He's like the Joker, but with superpowers. It's somehow worse. But yeah, that was my random memories of comic books. But yeah, moving on to some other just general stuff, I guess, about the channel. I don't know if you guys know, but Film Fanatics kind of ended. We did that thing where we did a couple reviews of a couple movies a week, Dan and Justin and I, but due to scheduling and just wanting to do different things, we kind of ended that. So Dan's got his own channel going on. He's still going to review a couple movies, might be doing TV shows and stuff. But yeah, I might pop in. We did a review of Guardians of the Galaxy recently. You can check that out. But yeah, that's kind of what he's doing. So Film Fanatics, it's sort of, kind of, not really, a part of that. Only kind of part-timing it. My other collab group, the Phantom Group, is trying to get back on track. We've been doing a couple podcasts. People have been getting back together, having some discussions, so that's good. Please feel free to check them out. I know that I was talking earlier today, and apparently there's been some harassment issues. I don't know if you guys know, but apparently I think Lunar Spiral and Anime Hero both had a couple people impersonating them and saying negative things to their subscribers, pretending to be them. Really just vile, despicable, basic, internet stuff, I guess. But it's just unfortunate, that unfortunately, I think they've both gotten to the point where they're big enough, they've got enough of a strong fan base that there are going to be people out there that want to poke fun at them and try and ruin that. And I feel like it's the best way with anybody that tries to be a troll or a bully is you kind of just ignore it. But if it gets to the point where it is kind of like threatening or anything that might be super offensive, I think they're blocking them and stuff. But if you see that, please keep a lookout for that and do the appropriate bashing. And I was talking to some of my Phantom Group buddies about how it's like, it's kind of the dark side of the internet is that even though we do have people that are separated by states and countries coming together to talk about stuff and have some fun, we have other people that will take advantage of the anonymity and just attack other people and think it doesn't hurt them when it can, and it can be hurtful. And people just are immature, but they're just obviously bored of too much time on their hands if that's how they get their kicks, if you ask me. But that's just me. But yeah, check out the Phantom Group. We've been doing some more videos, so that's good. As far as I guess I'll take this time, a few more minutes here to talk just in general about the channel's direction, as if I've never done that before, right? Well, basically, I think anybody that's followed the channel for a while now, and I've been looking at it a lot, looking through my old videos, and I've, I think it's kind of evident that my channel has sort of lost its way. It's gone into a bit of a decline, and I'll admit, I haven't been. I realized the basis of my channel is, it was originally, and I guess still kind of is, to talk about anime and character analysis and stuff like that. But I've lost. I don't want to say. I honestly feel like for a couple reasons I've kind of gotten burned out of YouTube a little bit. And I kind of was taking sort of a mini hiatus over the past month or two. My girlfriend actually kind of encouraged me to do that. She's been kind of helping me with some things. But I'll talk a little bit about that just because I feel like it. Honestly, I really wanted to make this channel much bigger, much more official. As you guys know, I used to do a lot of these more serious, analytical, professional character analysis videos of anime and anime series reviews and in-depth analysis and stuff like that. And I really still want to do that. And there are still a bunch of older series that I want to talk about. But there are a couple factors that have made it difficult for me to feel the drive to do it. Some of it has to do with YouTube and my experience on here, and some of it has to do with just outside stuff in my life. As far as YouTube goes, well, quite frankly, I feel like I did put a lot of time and effort into my videos, some of my better ones at least, but they were usually on older things. I usually had a focus on a couple series. It was like Fullmetal Alchemist, Dragon Ball, Berserk, maybe Hakusho or Hunter x Hunter, and that was pretty much it. And I feel like I talked a lot about those shows in various different ways over the past, like 5 years on here or something, or more, to some degree. And I do feel like there's still more avenues I can explore, but I feel like I just could take a break from some of that, to be honest, because I haven't really been following up as much on anime, because I feel like it's hard to keep up with all the new shows, and people want to do discussions about new shows, and you'd think that with Dragon Ball Super, for instance, it would be a rife time for me to talk about it, and I like to sometimes, but I kind of like talking about shows when they've kind of completed and I can think about them, ruminate on them, and really tackle them. People like to react and talk about the new episodes, and that's fun, but I don't know. I guess when it comes to my style of videos, the analysis stuff, it's really better when there's a complete body of work. So when it comes to these older shows like Dragon Ball even, I'd probably rather talk about the older stuff than the newer stuff, basically. But, there's the whole... I think also that I suspect that the fan base might have just lost a little bit of interest in my stuff because, my subscribers were interested in those videos, and I haven't really done many videos like that. And, I understand that. Because in addition to that, I mean, the whole YouTube copyright thing, which admittedly has gotten a little better. I liked to use clips and stuff, and I guess it's not really necessary, but I kind of felt conflicted about, whether to use clips or not, and I didn't want to go through the hassle of having to file a claim and have videos getting removed or strikes on my channel. And so I made the website so I could put up those videos on my website, but I don't know how often people go on to it, how much they support it. I mean, I see people do kind of, but I don't know. I don't know how many of them have interest for it. So I have more freedom with the website, but it didn't really take off quite as well as I would have liked it to. That's why I'm kind of just writing articles on there now, because it's sort of a way for me to just kind of get the video to you guys quicker, more stressfully, but just through writing. Which is really a third of the process, because to make a video, you had to be motivated, first of all, interested in what you're talking about, have energy for it, which I haven't had as much of lately. You'd want to have recently tried to watch the thing, so you had it fresh in your mind, watch a series, who has time to do that, and then you got to actually sit and write your script out, right? And then you got to record the audio for it, and then you got to find images or clips, and you got to put it together and edit it. And I really feel like I've made some decent videos. I am proud of a lot of the videos I've made, but did those videos get as many views? Did it really matter? I don't know. The point is, I felt like for all the effort that I was putting into these things, I wasn't putting in a direction that would make my channel more popular. And I said that I didn't care about that, but it's gotten to the point where I don't even have the time and energy to, at least lately, to talk about the things I even like to talk about. And, whether or not I can even get it to people the way I wanted to. So there was some frustration there creatively. And I'll admit, like I said, that there's a lot of factors there. And then that takes into account, to be honest with you guys, there has been some, outside stressors, in my life to some extent. I mean, I've been busy with work. I'm trying to keep my career focused, trying to, step up. I kind of, I got new things going on there, trying to be more serious with that. I mean, I got relationship stuff I'm trying to focus on. So, there's that. There's family stuff. So there's a lot of, personal things, which aren't necessarily all bad, but they've taken up a lot of my time, and it doesn't give me a lot of time or energy. And maybe I haven't managed my time as well as I could. And it's also been pointed out to me that, the time you put into something, is evident based on how much you actually want to do it. So, quite frankly, for the last couple months, I've done these podcasts, but I did it because I felt like it had to be. I wanted to keep my channel going because it's been a big part of my life, and I don't want to give it up. But to be honest, doing a lot of these videos has been hard for me. It's felt more like a chore. It's felt more like something I have to do rather than something I want to do and I was inspired to do. And I remember thinking about the old days of my channel when it was just me driving to college, recording my voice badly on a camera, just my thoughts about anime and stuff, because I had so many and no one to talk to about it. And that was the basis for my channel. And yeah, it was basic, and some of those early videos I made were basic, and they might be technically crappy, but you know what? They had heart, and I liked them, and I cared about what I was talking about, and that's the stuff that made my channel, more successful eventually, is because people liked that. Maybe not a lot of people, but the people that did were dedicated to it, and I thank you for that, guys. I really do. Like, I am thankful, and I mean, my channel is like fine. It's got a couple thousand subs. I don't mind. I guess I'd like it to be bigger, but like I said, the focus hasn't really been there. The drive hasn't been there. There's been a lot of other stuff going on that's, I guess been more important. So, I guess what I'm saying is, I guess what I'm saying is, I've been struggling a bit, and I think you guys can tell by like the fact that, let's be honest, the last like couple months of my videos haven't been the best quality. I mean, they haven't been, they haven't been, you can see it's pretty evident, but I was trying, and I was trying too hard. I was trying to do too much, and not prioritizing things. And the good thing is, though, I actually am going to be having, I think, a little more free time, because for a little while, hopefully, to do some more things. And I want to get back to actually making some of these videos again, and getting my channel back to, what it's supposed to be about. And really, this podcast, for anybody that's listening, is a very real side of me. You can tell that it's not scripted. And I'm not even really talking to you guys about anime and stuff anymore. I'm having a legitimate discussion, about myself, and it's not really Merlin, it's Joe. I don't know how often I've really said that, but yeah, it's I might be Merlin the Mighty, but I'm also Joe. I'm a guy. I'm a guy with a life and things going on, and I don't know if anybody has really been upset, about that. About requests not being done, but like I haven't even felt like doing videos of my own, let alone other people's. So, and I'll be honest, I don't know if it's ever going to get back to that. I had dreams of maybe being able to, make a living off of YouTube or make it a part-time job. But I'll be honest with you, monetization kind of might have hurt the concept of monetization might have hurt my channel, because I might have thought more about getting the money than actually creating something that I liked for the fun of it. So, I think that's something they always warn you about, which may have affected me, because I got kind of frustrated by it. So there's a lot of factors, and yeah. Also, my direction has been kind of focused on other things too creatively, which I might open up. Like I've been really getting more into music lately. I don't know if you guys noticed, but like a couple months back, I actually put up a little album I made. I made it through the Soundtrap app, but kind of rough, very like electronic, weird, a little rough maybe. But I really want to do more of that. I want to get more into music creation, because music has always been a love of mine. Like I've really been getting back into just listening to music recreationally, just a lot of like the rock and the metal and the electronica and other things, and just really exploring a lot of the music that I love, and exploring bands more that I didn't know about, and learning about new music and even old big stuff that I missed. And it's really been inspiring to me, really, and it's been calming and relaxing, and it's really helped give me some of my creativity back. Because honestly, I haven't really been playing video games or watching anime or reading comics, but getting into music, I finally started to again, and that was really important. And I've been actually trying to learn to play guitar a little bit more, trying to record some things. So I'm really hoping to do more stuff like that. I'm planning on probably doing another movie this summer, kind of a thriller. Hopefully, I learned a little bit more about how to use my camera, so it might not look quite as crappy. So at least that aspect might be improved. I don't know about anything else, but so I've got other things in the works, a lot of things going on. But I just want to let you guys know, that I'm still planning on doing videos. I still want to get back to making some really good quality stuff, talking about things I want to talk about, anime series, old cartoons, sci-fi, horror movies, video games, comic books, whatever. But I want to get back to doing some of those videos, and I'm going to. But the really good stuff, it might take a while to come out. I'm not going to try to rush it and lower the quality of it. I'm just going to do it when I feel like it. I might not be able to stick to a schedule because, every time I've tried to do that, it's never worked out. I always get stressed out. I always feel like I'm rushing. I might try to get on some kind of schedule, but really I'm just going to do it when I feel like it, quite frankly. And it might just be podcasts like this. It might be some live streams. It might be some actual full reviews, better edited stuff, better written stuff. But I'm going to be pumping out a lot of articles on my website. That's one thing I've been doing pretty consistently, like every other day, about pretty much all the stuff I talk about on here. So, like I said, check out that website. Check out the old videos there. I might put up videos on the site, might put videos up on here, but this channel's not going away. I'm not going away. I apologize for the lack of quality content, but honestly, I lost some of my creative drive, and I think I'm getting some of it back. And just be patient, and feel free to send some ideas out there for things you'd like to hear me talk about. It'll be coming. But yeah, thanks for listening, guys. Feel free to comment below if you've gotten to this point. And I'll talk to you guys later. Stay magical.